Have you realized the spell your mum cast on you has backfired on her? What she intended to keep you trapped has now unraveled, and the very energy she used against you is turning back on her. She thought she could control your destiny, but the universe had other plans. The spell she cast has been reversed, and now she must face the consequences. It's not your burden anymore, it's hers. Everything she tried to inflict upon you is coming back, and she will be forced to pay for the harm she attempted to cause. From childhood, your mother's subtle manipulations were more than mere words. They were invisible threads, woven to control your every thought and move. She didn't just give advice, she planted seeds of guilt, shame, and fear, ensuring you stayed small and tethered to her will. The spell was woven through her tone, the sharpness of her disapproving looks, and the veiled comments that left you second-guessing your worth. Every time she dismissed your dreams as foolish or criticized your choices with a sigh, she was casting her spell. The goal was clear: to keep you dependent, to make you doubt your strength, and to bind you to her version of who you were meant to be. You were to be her shadow, never stepping too far into your own light, always just small enough to be controlled. But those threads, as tightly wound as they were, have started to fray. The spell, once impenetrable, has weakened as you've become more aware of its existence. Her criticisms, once a weight you couldn't shake, now reveal their true purpose: to keep you from rising. It wasn't concern for your well-being, it was her fear of losing control over you. The truth hits you like a storm. The chains she wrapped around your spirit, disguised as love and concern, are breaking. The more you see her manipulations for what they are, the less power they hold over you. Remember the time she questioned your decisions as if they were personal failures of her own. It wasn't guidance. It was another twist of the thread meant to strangle your confidence. Each time she looked at your achievements with indifference or compared you to others, she was trying to clip your wings. But now, the spell she cast with every condescending glance has reversed. The web she wove to trap you has turned back on her. Her words no longer cut. They expose her own insecurity, her own fear of losing the grip she thought she had on you. Now you're no longer small. You stand taller, and she, watching from a distance, begins to crumble under the very magic she created. The once invisible threads now strangle her, and with every step you take into your power, she is left to unravel, powerless against the spell she thought would bind you forever. Over time, you sensed something was deeply wrong, like a quiet storm brewing inside you. The feeling that you were meant for more, that your life had a purpose far beyond the limitations she imposed, became undeniable. You began to see the cracks in the reality she constructed, a reality designed to keep you under her control, where your light remained dim so hers could shine brighter. The spell she cast was beginning to shatter because your will was no longer pliable. You stopped accepting her version of you and started reclaiming the power that was always yours, hidden beneath layers of doubt and fear she planted in your mind. Then came the moment of truth. You stood on the edge of a breakthrough, a promotion, a life-changing opportunity that would take you to heights she never wanted you to reach. The excitement surged through your veins, but for the first time, you didn't rush to share it with her. No, this time you kept it close, shielding it from the storm of negativity she would surely unleash. It wasn't fear that held your tongue, it was strength. You understood that sharing your joy with her would mean watching her dismantle it, thread by thread, just as she had done to so many of your dreams before. This decision marked the turning point, a moment of quiet rebellion where you chose your own path over her approval. The spell was breaking. In that silence, you realized something profound. Her power over you was only as strong as your willingness to let her cast those doubts. For years, she made you believe that your victories were hollow without her validation. But now you see it clearly. Her validation was nothing more than another illusion, a tool to keep you small. By keeping your dreams safe from her criticism, you took back the keys to your destiny. Her spell, which once wrapped around you like a suffocating vine, has withered in the light of your awakening. Now, with every step forward, you feel the chains loosening. You no longer seek her permission to thrive. Her words, which once cut through your confidence like a dagger, now fall away, powerless. the spell is broken, and you stand, no longer in her shadow, but in your own radiant light, untouchable. The moment the spell reverses is the instant you decide to reclaim your power and live life on your terms. Her control over you has always relied on your need for validation, the approval you sought from someone who never had your best interests at heart. But now, you've severed that thread. You no longer chase her approval, nor do you need her to confirm your worth. The decision is final. You will no longer be shackled by the weight of her expectations. You step forward with a newfound clarity, embracing your autonomy, and with that, the spell unravels. The energy she once used to bind you can no longer touch you. You make a bold move, a new venture, a decision that marks the beginning of your life lived on your own terms. Whether it's the start of a fresh chapter in your career or the spark of a new relationship, you no longer inform her. There's no need to. You refuse to offer her another chance to twist your ambitions into something she can tear apart. When she eventually finds out, her reaction is immediate, just as you expected, but something has shifted. Her attempts to criticize, to diminish your choices, fall into a void. Her words, once venomous and capable of stinging deep, now hold no power over you. The venom she once wielded with precision has turned dull, and then comes the realization, the moment her facade cracks. You can see it in her eyes, the moment of panic disguised as frustration, as she understands what has happened. The power has shifted, and she is now the one struggling to maintain control. Her once firm grasp on your decisions has slipped, and no matter how desperately she tries to pull you back under her influence, it's futile. The spell has reversed, and it binds her now. The grip she once had on you has turned against her, leaving her grasping at straws, unable to manipulate or control your choices. You stand firm, unshaken, as her world begins to unravel. She's caught in the web she spun for you, but you no longer care. You're free, and for the first time she's the one grappling with the chains she once used to bind you. The reversal is complete. You've won. The moment the spell reverses, the very energy she used to bind you now ricochets back onto her. The power she once wielded to manipulate and control your every decision collapses under its own weight. You no longer exist as the extension of her will. You've reclaimed your autonomy, and with it, the entire balance shifts. The force she poured into holding you down now turns inward, leaving her to face the consequences of the chains she crafted. The dynamic has flipped. She no longer controls the narrative of your life. Now it is she who must grapple with the harsh consequences of her actions, a reality she can no longer twist in her favor. The cracks begin to show. The life she once dominated with such certainty starts to unravel. Her health falters as though her own body betrays the venom she cast toward you. The relationships she held together with the same manipulative threads begin to break down, revealing the loneliness she can no longer mask. Every word she used to wound you now festers within her, manifesting in unexpected setbacks. Financial security, once her stronghold, now teeters on the brink as though the universe itself has grown tired of her greed. The control she desperately clung to is slipping through her fingers like sand. Her world begins to crumble, not because you wish her ill, but because that's the natural consequence of trying to control what was never hers to command. Every action she took to stifle your growth now reflects back on her, like a mirror she cannot escape. The energy she used to tighten her grip on your spirit is now suffocating her, closing in around her like the very walls she built to contain you. The control she exercised over your decisions and your identity now leaves her in a state of spiraling chaos, unable to reconcile the reality of her situation. You watch, not in cruelty, but in clarity, as the weight of her manipulation begins to crush her. Her attempts to regain control are futile, and with every misstep it becomes clear. The life she once shaped with her iron grip is slipping from her grasp. The spell has reversed. What was once your burden is now hers, and the very power she sought to wield over you is now the force dismantling everything she built. The moment you recognized your true worth was the instant her grip began to loosen. The power she held over you was never real. It was built on the false foundation of your seeking her validation. But the second you stopped letting her define who you are, the spell unraveled. You no longer looked to her for approval. You no longer carried the weight of her expectations. Instead, you found your strength within, and that inner strength shattered the illusions she carefully built to control you. The reversal wasn't just a shift in power, it was a collapse of her influence. Your independence, your self-realization, became the force that dismantled everything she tried to mold you into. It's undeniable when you hit a major milestone, perhaps receiving an award, achieving something monumental, or simply finding a deep sense of inner peace that radiates through every fiber of your being. It's undeniable because the shift is palpable. You're no longer the version of yourself she thought she could manipulate. Word of your success reaches her, and the impact is immediate. She can no longer ignore the truth. You are beyond her reach. Every attempt to tether you to her control has failed, and the reality she's forced to face is that she no longer has any say in your life. The chains she used to keep you small are broken, and now you soar in a space where she can't even follow. Her reaction isn't one of celebration for your achievement. No, it's something darker, something tinged with the bitterness of realizing her power has completely disintegrated. She can no longer shape your path, and that realization crushes her. You stand tall in the light of your success, while she's left to confront the emptiness of her own failed attempts to keep you under her control. The contrast is sharp. You, radiant and unburdened, while she, watching from the sidelines, is consumed by the shadows of her own doing. In that moment, the reversal is clear. She can no longer define you, limit you, or hold you back. Her influence is a distant memory, crumbling under the weight of your self-realization. The power has always been yours, but now it's undeniable, and she is forced to reckon with the consequences of her actions. You are free, and she is left to confront a reality where her spell no longer holds any sway over you. Desperation sets in as she feels the grip slipping from her hands. The control she once wielded over you with subtle manipulations, guilt and fear is crumbling. But she doesn't go quietly. She scrambles to reassert her influence, trying to cast the same spells that used to keep you in line. Yet this time, the more she tries, the more her own manipulation unravels. The spell she relied on to keep you tethered now backfires, entangling her in the very web she spun. Her attempts to regain control are futile, and she doesn't even realize that each move she makes tightens the snare around her own intentions. She might resort to the old familiar tricks, guilt-tripping you with words designed to make you question your choices, pulling at the emotional strings she once knew so well. Perhaps she tries to bring up past sacrifices, reminding you of everything she's done for your own good. But this time, her tactics fall flat, their impact dulled by the clarity you've gained. You see through the layers now. The veil has been lifted, and what once held you captive has no hold on you anymore. Her words, dripping with manipulation, no longer pierce your heart as they used to. Instead, they reflect back to her, powerless, revealing the desperation behind her attempts. She may even try to pull you back into the familiar patterns, the routines where you were forced to shrink yourself to fit her narrative. But now, those patterns are nothing more than echoes of a past life you've outgrown. Every step you take forward pushes her further into the shadows, where she belongs. You recognize the ploys, the manipulation dressed as concern, and it only strengthens your resolve. Her attempts to reassert dominance only serve to highlight the strength of your independence. Her struggle becomes a mirror of her own undoing. The more she reaches for you, the more she grasps at empty air, left with nothing but her own reflections of control slipping away. Her desperation grows, but you're already too far beyond her reach. The power dynamic has shifted irreversibly, and her influence crumbles piece by piece while you move forward unshaken. What she once wielded as power is now her downfall, and the more she tries, the more the spell reverses upon her, leaving her entangled in her own web. The final break is not a loud, dramatic moment. It is a quiet severing of ties that happens deep within you, a shift so monumental it redefines everything. It's the point when her manipulation no longer affects you, where the weight she once held over your life evaporates, leaving nothing but the clarity of your own strength. You've done the work, healed the wounds she created, and now the scars are nothing more than reminders of battles you've already won. Her power is gone, not because she released it, but because you took it back. You are no longer bound by the chains of guilt, fear, or obligation that once defined your relationship. This is the moment she loses for good, though she doesn't realize it yet. There comes a final attempt. Perhaps it's at a family gathering or during a routine phone call. She tries again, grasping at the last threads of control, using the same tactics she always relied on. Maybe it's a subtle guilt trip, reminding you of everything she sacrificed, twisting your choices to sound like betrayals. Maybe it's an accusation, designed to trigger the old reactions of defensiveness, to pull you back into the emotional cage she once built for you. But this time, something profound happens. You don't react. The words that once carried the weight of an anchor now drift past you like dead leaves on the wind. You see through her now. Every attempt she makes, every word she speaks, exposed for the manipulation it truly is. You're no longer entangled in her web. In that moment, her voice may rise, her tone may sharpen, but it doesn't reach you. The desperation she tries to disguise as authority becomes clear, and for the first time, she's the one left scrambling for control. The power she once held over your emotions is gone, evaporated in the heat of your self-realization. The distance between you isn't physical, but it's vast and undeniable. She can sense it, though she won't admit it. Her attempts to wound you fall flat, and there's nothing left for her to cling to. You remain still, watching as her words dissolve into nothing. The guilt that used to wrap itself around you like a chain now breaks apart at your feet. You don't even need to defend yourself. Your silence is louder than any rebuttal could be. Her influence has crumbled, and with it the illusion of power she once held over you. As you walk away, whether physically or emotionally, you're untouched, unscathed by her last desperate attempt. The final break isn't in her hands, it's in yours. You've won because you no longer need her approval, her validation, or her acknowledgement. Her control over your life has ended, not with an argument, but with the quiet, unshakable truth that you no longer care. The spell is shattered, and with it, any hold she thought she had over you. You walk away free, while she's left to grapple with the hollow remains of her broken control. The spell your mother tried to place on you has been shattered. No longer does her influence weigh on your decisions, your self-worth, or your freedom. The reversal is absolute, and she's left to confront the consequences of her own actions. What she once used to bind you, guilt, manipulation, control, has backfired, leaving her entangled in her own web of deceit. The power she sought to strip from you is now fully restored, and the chains she wrapped around your spirit are nothing more than dust. You stand in your strength, unshaken, with a clarity that cannot be undone. This victory is not just about breaking free from her control. It's about reclaiming your autonomy, your voice, and your truth. You're no longer living in the shadow of her manipulation. Every step you take now is yours. Every decision guided by your inner strength, rather than external expectations. Her attempts to hold you back have only served to highlight how far you've come, and she's left grappling with the reality that she can no longer affect you. Her power over you is gone, and with it, the toxic hold she once had over your life. The beauty of this triumph is in the understanding that you are the one in control now. No one, not even the person who should have been your greatest support, can dictate the course of your life. You've stepped into your power, fully aware that the future is yours to shape. The chains that once held you are broken, and you walk forward unburdened, stronger and more resilient than ever. Now is your time to share your story. How did you break free from the spells others tried to cast on you? How did you reclaim your power and rise above the manipulation? Your triumph is not just a personal victory, it's a beacon for others who are still struggling to free themselves. Your experience has value, and by sharing it you can help others recognize their own strength. The spell is broken, and you are living proof that true power comes from within. Share your story. Let others know that they too can reclaim their lives,